session. So it's titled Experiences with Online Problem-Based Learning. And I'll pass you over now to Clare Conway, who's going to lead us through this. I'll give you a 10-minute warning if that's okay, Clare, as well. Cheers.
Great, thank you. Hi, so yeah, my name is Clare Conway and I'm a clinical tutor in problem-based learning at the School of Medicine at UL. Just to quickly mention the rest of the school-based team, Helena, Sarah, Dervla and Joe, and then we have over 30 PBL tutors, mostly GPs, all clinicians who come in and would normally come in and deliver PBL sessions to our year 1 and 2 medical students. We also have, most importantly, have a fantastic tech team and admin support as well. So really, by means of introduction, I just wanted to note that we're all well aware of this huge growth in not just PBL, but general small group teaching experience online throughout the past year. We did a few calculations and worked out that I think it's over 2,600 sessions between 30-something of us we've managed to deliver. That's 36 groups, 2 sessions a week over the past year. The biggest challenge probably was in the first lockdown last March. You remember that dreaded day when Leo made his announcement and there was a mad scramble that weekend. I think we worked pretty much through the weekend, but managed to get all the groups online for the following Monday morning. So there was no break in delivery. So I thought today really it's a great opportunity just to say, you know, we're very up for collaborating, problem solving by looking at, you know, the knowledge that we've acquired over this time period, and we've all got shared interests, whatever the particular discipline might be. Certainly our objectives today were to really think about the progress from an emergency intervention to longer term measures which we've had to implement, to look at the key elements of transferring PBL successfully online, and to see what has worked well and also the challenges faced. We'll mention some feedback we've got from different stakeholders, and really we're trying to work out what best practices going forward. So I delved back into the literature before all of this happened, just to think, what did we have to go on? So actually the last 2 decades or so we've had reports that PBL can be successful and worthwhile online, but also that it might be more difficult than people would assume because there's so much change, I think, as reflected in the last presentation, to routines and processes. So online successful delivery of really any kind of small group teaching is very much dependent on the creative use of technology and that really important concept of both social and cognitive presence online. So here you can see, just didn't have time for the full video, it's available online, but just some snapshots of how you might see us normally in a small group tutorial room, and then using Big Blue Button, which was our platform made available to us in UL. So you can see the small groups there. They've managed to, first of all, prepare by hand some learning objectives once they've discussed their hypotheses. And they present their learning objectives that they've worked together on. So again, that idea of participation, identifying problems, working through them, going off and doing self-directed learning, and then coming back and presenting and discussing together to problem solve can still very much happen. But as time went by, we got slicker and slicker really at using different tools and apps in order to really make the most of drawing tools in particular. So here were the main things we decided would be really key to reflect upon: technology, and certainly a platform that did everything we needed it to do. Connectivity is already highlighted, people's Wi-Fi access and scheduling, to make sure that everyone was prepared and ready to go from the outset. Ongoing support has been really, really important, not just technical support, but general support for each other between staff and students. So we've really kept up a lot of informal communications as well, WhatsApp groups and so on. Participation has obviously changed, and we've had to adapt ground rules to working online. You all know the different distractions that anyone could burst in at any minute at home and so on. So we've really worked at that sort of social interaction and engagement. In terms of the curriculum, we've had to make sure that everything has been synchronised between things like clinical skills, lecture materials, etc., trying to make that all work together in this new online remote format. And also planning, because I'm sure all of you have had the same issues with not knowing the timescale of whether this was going to continue, and really reflective practice as we've gone along has allowed us to adapt along the way. The other thing in terms of pedagogy has also been very much to stick to problem-based learning. Some people may know has a very structured process, and it was really important not to forget that in the online transfer, that we still need to very much deliver the elements of that style of learning. So for progress, we've got a lot of considerations here. So that would apply to any platform. I think you mentioned Miro earlier, but it's very much been a case of doing troubleshooting one-to-one, academic advising, which Teams has been very useful for. Not changing the groups over so often has been a basic but helpful measure that we've all developed more familiarity in the same groups online. I've mentioned already coordinating sessions. And so far, we've only managed 3 weeks of blended learning, I think, because our term starts a little earlier. So the semester in autumn, we got 3 weeks face-to-face with new Year 1 students. And really now we're just looking at our capabilities for the next academic year in terms of blending. Big challenges, certainly engagement and motivation. We've tried icebreaker sessions, we've mixed things up as much as we can. We've used little polling stations online, role plays, and all sorts of video and other visual images and so on. As I've said, guidance and support keeping everybody on board has been so essential. But let's be honest, I think we've all had online fatigue at times. So taking breaks, getting that cup of tea, and making sure that we're kind of strict over communications, that we're not at everybody 24/7 has also been important. I'd be really interested to hear what other people feel about video, because we certainly have had a real shift of norms. We've all got used to seeing ourselves online, looking at each other, even if we're in our pyjamas, and getting more comfortable with that. And I think it really has helped with level of interactions. So in terms of the platform itself, I just thought I'd highlight some things that might be useful to other people to think about. Trying to reformat file size when resources are too big. If you've got something new, think about the file to start with. You know, video clips can really brighten things up, and we've certainly learned to use video tools. Sometimes students actually plug in a secondary device like an iPad, and that has really helped with a live sketching during sessions. I've mentioned visibility already. But Wi-Fi has limited that sometimes. So we do have a phone-in option, worst case scenario, and sometimes rural broadband has upskittled things a little bit. But overall, we've had a very good service, and we have had the occasional drop or freeze, but then we've just switched to Teams as a backup. I just thought I'd add a couple of pictures. These are the kind of things the students were coming up with that they'd sketched themselves. We tend to make them not fully annotated so they can expand and discuss during the session. And here was a quick example of a little quiz they'd sorted between them. So wider issues really, just thinking about inequalities, inclusivity, and like we said, making sure everyone has equal access to their learning when they're working remotely. There definitely has been issues in terms of burnout and coping because of the bigger picture of the challenges people face. It's really important, I think, just to highlight university counselling and chaplaincy and GP services in that context. Hacking, I think we all saw email this morning, and that's something I think we've all had raised awareness of, just trying to protect staff and students. And generally that completely different experience of university that they've had this year, particularly first years, even as graduates. We are seeing new positive skill sets emerging, but we do very much acknowledge that it hasn't been the same for them, even though our part of the course is the non-clinical part. But even so, that kind of building of friendships and familiarity with the institution has been different and restricted. So who knows next? We're still looking at the time scale for what we can do for September, but we're very hopeful at the moment that we'll be able to offer blended learning. Sorry, I can't see you there. So
sorry, just 2 minutes left.
2 minutes, thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, so just briefly, this was a feedback survey we did back in June, and you can see there most tutors at that point were finding the platform extremely easy, or at least moderately easy. Students got very positive feedback that they actually felt their students had gotten on to doing all of this, and that over 90% of them thought their tutors were highly skilled. A poll here I conducted actually at a healthcare workshop in March this year was quite interesting, because everyone involved in that, all educators in medicine, were very keen on blended learning in the future. So in conclusion, we know the adaptations have been very extensive and prolonged. We do feel that our own teaching provision has evolved and improved with experience and feedback. We're trying to remain as flexible as we can. We're all craving that real contact with people, and we know this is viable. We want to go face to face, but we'll retain the good aspects, particularly some of the lectures and things that tie in. They're very handy to have online. So we know it's a workable alternative, and we're very keen to keep training online up to date so that we have this option in future. Thanks very much, and happy to take any questions by email as well.
Perfect, Claire. Thanks very much. And